Everybody ready? Okay, I'd like to call to order today, the Tuesday, September 4th meeting of the County Commissioners. Would you please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business to serve our community. Guide our hearts and minds in the spirit of service, right thought, and discussion. Provide us with your supreme wisdom so that our decisions may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, you can have a seat now.
I think, Counselor, you have an announcement to make?
Yes, just so you know, the executive session that was set for 9:30 this morning has been recessed and will be reconvened immediately following this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, somebody's phone. All right, moving on to A, the first order of business. I believe we have acknowledged receipts of proposal and authorized review from the Department of PSAP. Ray?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Raymond Schultz, 58266 Downey Avenue. We received 6 responses for our request for proposal. Tyler Technologies, Mark 43, Motorola Superion, Tritech, and Tyler, I started with Tyler. Caliber. We received those digitally. And I have a binder, and everybody provided a flash drive. So I have a flash drive if you guys want a copy at some point that way. But I'm requesting proposal to or permission to review those proposals with the technical review committee.
Who's an actual physical receipt of the bids right now?
They're in the actual binders in my office.
Okay.
And when were they due, sir?
Last Friday or 2 Fridays ago.
Okay. I think generally what would happen is whenever you receive them, you would not open them until at this public meeting and when authorized to.
Yes, sir. They sent some digitally and via flash drive. So there wasn't a binder for every proposal.
And that was approved by the RFP, allowed
Correct.
by the RFP. Okay. But you haven't opened those flash drives?
Correct.
Okay. And usually when a department head would present, they actually probably have a written list of the at least the name of the vendor and their primary city and state of address of a business location, maybe not having the dollar amounts,
Okay.
but
Right.
at least drawing that information off the envelope.
That way, so we know and you can remember too.
And there's a
I know.
and there's a public record.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Just on that issue.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so is there a motion?
I will not make a motion to this. I was not a fan, and I did not support the RFP process. I do not want to spend the concept of spending more money. For $3 to $6 million just is not. I don't think that's the right approach. I think we need to hold Tyler Technologies accountable, and I still feel that way.
Well, I agree. We need to hold Tyler Technologies accountable, but we need to also plan for the future at some point too. So this is just would be an assessment. So what do we do here?
Are you going to make a motion? I heard Mr. Thomas say he would not make a motion, but perhaps you should make a motion to physically accept the bids and have them reviewed by the technical review committee and report back to you at a later meeting?
So moved, I do. Is there a second? Having no seconds? All right, so I have put on the table.
Mr. Agostino, is there anything in the RFP that has a timing component to this as to the opening of the bids?
The
And
bids
review.
will be received by August 24th, and so under the statute, with respect to request for proposals, they can be received in the way they were received. The only restriction by the statute is that no vendor be given any advantage by having one received earlier than the other, or the contents of the proposal be disclosed, and that did not happen. So we are in compliance with the statute in the way that this was processed. The bids are required to be open for a period of, or stay good for a period of up to a year.
Correct.
I think that, and I would ask Mr. Thomas to reconsider think it's important for not only being prepared for the future, but also with respect to the morale of the people that invested lots of times in preparing this RFP. These are local police and fire people that deal daily with the issues there. It's important for them, for us to proceed to see, and to also, in the event there is litigation, strengthen our position by knowing what alternatives are. So I think it would be, frankly, more wasteful to not go ahead with the technical review. The technical review does not bind anything.
Right.
The ultimate decision is the commissioners to decide what
Right.
to do. But I think it's helpful for multiple reasons, including potential litigation, to have the technical review occur. And so I would urge you to allow that to go forward.
I tend to agree with him, because it's not that we're approving it, we're just accepting it and letting them assess it, and then they'll come back to us, and we can move forward or not, depending on that, but we have to accept the bids.
Counselor, since you're commenting at the request of Counselor, in the best case scenario, going forward, if the bids were accepted and there weren't to be any changes, it would take over a year for any of those changes to actually be implemented. Is that correct?
I don't know the exact time, but it will take a substantial length of time.
Would a minimum of a year be an accurate statement?
Ray, what do you say?
It's hard to predict because each vendor has their own process. So could it be? Probably it could be. Yes.
So waiting a week is not going to kill the desire of some people to spend all this money.
It's
Well,
not that
it's not-
the decision,
Right.
we're not making a decision to spend money.
Right.
Frankly, it is a
Wanna get-
commitment by Mishawaka, South Bend, Clay Fire, all the little fire townships in St. Joe County, the other towns who have committed resources to this process in reliance on this thing going forward, that are prepared to review, that have committed time for review. It's frankly disrespectful to them to simply put a halt or break on this at this point, when we don't gain anything by doing that, but we do gain by doing the review.
Sir, I haven't seen any interlocal agreements between this body, the PSAP, and the townships that I'm aware of. And regarding any interlocal agreements between this body, South Bend, and Mishawaka, I don't recall seeing any that says they will help spend and pay $3 to $6 million for what this might cost, nor have I seen the county council appropriate any funding for any of this. So therefore, once again, I'm not accustomed to just voting to shovel out millions of dollars, which could be unnecessarily. Now, if some people have worked hard on this RPF, maybe that energy might have been better spent fixing the problems at the 911 center. Some people say it's GIS, some people say it's not. Last year it was reported that over 10,000 calls went unanswered. A few months ago it was reported that 9,500 calls were sent to the wrong addresses. So if this project is something that might help us over a year from now, I would like to see better results and something that helps us a lot sooner.
But yeah, we got to still move in the right direction, though. And we're not spending any money right now. We're just assessing it to see how we can. So I certainly would appreciate it if you would second it so we can move forward with this and support the PSAP going better. I think it'd be great. Because, right, we're not spending any money right now doing it.
We're not spending any money right now.
Right.
We can decide after the technical review that you don't want to take any proposals.
Right, yeah.
But I think that acting without knowing
Right.
is,
Because you're still moving down the same road. I mean, you're going to be assessing what you have now, and then we're going to be changing, so we can move it and compare it. And if we don't have the issues, we can't compare it. So that's why I'm saying we need to move forward with this.
And Counselor, I like your wife's comments, acting without knowing. I do have a given knowledge on the matters involved. And at this time, again, I will not support shoveling out millions of dollars,
with all due
potentially.
respect, okay, you don't know what's in those proposals.
Right.
You don't know if there's some new form of technology being proposed. You don't know if there's a new way of operating contemplating a CAD system which would benefit us. That's something that we would need to know and is helpful for us to know in considering how to improve things going forward.
Right.
So,
Sir?
I certainly agree.
So we don't want to be in a position where we're going to should remain ignorant of what is in those proposals. That it's helpful to
Yeah, it
us
doesn't
all
hurt.
around.
It'll help.
And it doesn't cost you anything at
Right.
this point to review those. So,
Sir, I don't see if waiting a week would damage something that's going to take over a year to process. And the fact that we've already shelled out $3 million approximately for a CAD system, and we've been paying over $300,000 a year in maintenance fees, although this year the fee has been withheld, trying to get the vendor to perform better service. Whatever the issues are, they need to be addressed now and sooner.
okay. So
And
I guess
the concept of just shoveling money at this problem is not, I don't think, a good approach.
Understood. We're not shoveling money at it. We're asking to review these. Now, if you're asking for us to
And that
wait a
request
week-
was made, and you got your answer.
Okay, but you said wait a week. Are you is your motion would you make a motion then to start the review process a week later?
Well, sir, if there is no motion to accept these potential bids, physically accept them, then odds are it would be presented at our next commissioner meeting, which will probably be next Tuesday at 10 o'clock in this very room. I would, as our longtime counselor for St. Johns County, I think you would know that. Maybe I'm
We have
mistaken.
our claim meeting next Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday meeting.
Yeah. So you're going to support it, you're going to second it next Tuesday, huh?
I didn't say that.
Well,
There's no action that can be taken on this agenda item, so I appreciate it.
We'll come back next week.
all right.
And I'll
Looking
bring-
forward to seeing you guys next week. All righty. So would you call that tabled then? Is
It's
it
not tabled.
Not
That's
tabled?
nothing.
There's no action on the
No
agenda
action, no
item.
nothing, huh? Oh, I'm sorry. All righty, moving on to B, reports and requests from the commissioners. Accounts payable docket. Is there a motion to approve the accounts payable docket?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the accounts payable docket as outlined.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Good. All right, moving on to B. It's a settlement agreement. And it's motion for approval of any comments?
I would, Counselor, you want us to discuss this settlement agreement?
I can just make a few comments. This is the settlement agreement for a partial taking of property at Fur and Brick Road. And this is properties being taken as part of the Fur and Brick Road roundabout project. And this is a mediated settlement agreement. Both parties were represented by counsel. We had a private mediator, Judge Cook, appear. And as with past practice, settlement agreements are approved at an open meeting of the Board of Commissioners. So I'm requesting your approval of the settlement agreement. Ms. Clark attended. We think that this is a fair resolution of this matter with the homeowners.
And, sir, how much land, how many acres does this involve?
I think it's .15 some acres. Is that right, Mr. Garrett? My law partner, Phil Garrett's back there. He was more involved in the case than I was. But it's less than a quarter of an acre. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And what would that translate to the cost per acre?
I don't have that figure today.
Would it be around $350,000 an acre?
You're asking me to guess, I can't guess.
Okay, just for the record, would you have the counter and state your name and address?
Attorney Phil Garrett, address 420 Lincoln Way West, Mishawaka, Indiana.
And Jessica Clark, County Engineer with offices here in room 732 of County City Building. The appraisal itself is not just for land acreage. It is also then for any damages that result in the entire appraisal of the property, plus any improvements that are on site. So merely just projecting out that cost per acre wouldn't completely be accurate, because the percentage of that is the land value for the per acre. The remaining costs of that are damages, setback damages, and any other improvements that we had to acquire part of the taking. So that isn't quite that high.
And do you have that broken down, how much per
Correct,
acre?
yeah, that's outlined in our appraisal packet.
Okay, do you have that with you?
If you have it with it, it's in our office.
Okay. Well, I'd have that question and maybe a few others, so, do you want to table this until we get those answers, or?
I'd
I
prefer.
mean, this was it was a
Yeah.
proceeding where we had our appraiser, a review appraiser, the property owner disregarded the original offer and went through condemnation. Court has assigned 3 appraisers to appraise the property, and then we settled through the mediation procedure through the court. So, I mean, it has been
Right.
thoroughly reviewed and scrutinized as
For the
far
last
as what
couple
that
years,
land
too,
value
right?
should be.
And
Yeah.
this was set by a judge?
Yes.
The mediation
Yes.
was through a judge, yes, was Judge
Okay.
Cook.
But the dollar amount, the judge did not set that?
That is negotiated through the parties as a part of that mediation process.
Okay. On such an important matter, I'd like to hear what all the commissioners have to say. And I'm sorry, Mr. President Castelli is not here. I just found out, as Commissioner Fleming found out, just before this meeting, that he could not attend. I would like to table this matter till next week and get a little more details.
If you desire to table, that's perfectly fine. You can see, written in the mediation agreement, it says the agreement is contingent and subject to approval by the Board of Commissioners of St. Joseph County, so that has to take place. We approve settlement agreements open here in front of
As long
God
as
and the public.
And in my opinion, as long as it's a good mediation, I think that that's something that we need to, as commissioners, approve, that we've moved forward. I mean, it's been going on for the last couple of years, and now we've arranged it. So I think it's fine that we move forward with it. So I prefer not to table it. You and I, let's agree, let's move forward with it. Come on.
Well, were you at the mediation process? Did you agree to this $350,000?
It's not $350,000.
Approximately.
70,000 is what we're paying.
For 1.58 acres.
But that's not all.
But per acre cost would be
It's
three.
not that. Jessica just explained that.
Yeah, it's gonna be
and-
$70,000, yes.
Mr.
And-
Gary, do you have?
Additional damages besides the
Right.
acreage.
And also the trees, correct?
Correct.
There were trees in it.
Setback as well.
I will make a motion to approve the request. Was this a request of the counselor or county engineering? Who was this request by?
I think every request comes from the county department. We assist them and facilitate them in resolving
Considering,
their matters.
thank you, considering this request from the county engineering department and from the wise words spoken by my fellow commissioner,
Thank you.
I will approve this mediation agreement.
All right, I second that. All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
All those not approving, say nay. No? Okay. Ayes have it. Yes, we approve the settlement agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All righty. Now, we're going to move forward to letter C. Resolution R-C-16-2018, authorization of a real property that the Board of Commissioners, the Redevelopment Commission, has identified various parcels of real estate located in Indiana Enterprise area owned by, how do you pronounce, SPAT Inland Incorporated, and that the Board of Commissioners desire to acquire this parcels. So go ahead, and does anybody have any comments about this resolution?
So the resolution before you today is to set a purchase price and to move forward with the purchase elements of this proposal. The county is seeking to acquire 89.8 acres, so that includes a parcel as well as right-of-way along Edison Road east of Walnut. The purchase price would be $11,000 an acre, and the total purchase price would be $987,948. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Yes,
Any
Mr.
questions,
Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Nearly $1 million being spent here.
Nearly $1 million, that's correct.
And that's coming from property tax money paid by the businesses in the economic zone, the TIF district?
It's coming from TIF increment generated within the TIF development area, that's correct, yes.
Okay, and is there that money in the bank now, or are we going to sell bonds or use bond money now and pay interest later?
So we have cash in hand, but we did sell some bonds previously that are being used to support this purchase.
Okay, so we have outstanding bonds to buy this land.
We have outstanding bonds, period. The land is one of the things that we can use that bond proceeds for.
Okay.
Because that was approved to do this last year, right, over a year ago? Is that
2 years
correct?
ago,
2
yeah,
years ago?
as part of the
Yeah.
bond sale process, yes.
Right.
What is the goal? What does the redevelopment commission want with these nearly 90 acres of land?
So the goal is, this piece of property is a key piece as it relates to strategic property acquisition within the development area. The southwest corner of Walnut and Edison, it's a piece of property that would be used to facilitate the Nespajani Ditch Relocation Project, rail, plus it provides a 30-some acre piece of property for a future development parcel that would be taxable. that would generate taxes for St. Joseph County.
But in the meantime, it'd be non-taxable, right, while the county redevelopment commission owns the land?
For a period of time, and actually, 47 acres, I believe, already is untaxable as it's set up as a state nature preserve, so some of the property is currently untaxable presently.
Okay. The drainage issue, you mentioned the relining of the Nisqually Ditch. The drainage board does not support the current proposal of the Nesbajani Ditch realignment.
I don't believe that's correct, sir. The last time we were at the meeting, I believe we were favorably approved to continue moving forward through the permitting process.
No, I think you misunderstand, sir.
I
sure
don't
that
think
if you
so.
go, well, I'm pretty positive, sir.
Well, I was
that
there.
If you go to so was I.
Okay.
And I'm sure that if you go to the minutes of the meeting, it is clearly stated the board does not approve your proposal.
I don't believe that's correct, sir.
Well, I'm positive it is.
I suppose we could ask the county surveyor who's here.
If he recalls, we could ask them. Mr. McNamara, do you feel like commenting at this time?
Mr. McNamara doesn't appear to want to comment on this, but I would
that's
believe.
fine.
So, irregardless, and we can
Well,
certainly
I think
pull
it
the
is
minutes.
important to know that the drainage board, the permitting board, does not support this
I don't
project.
believe that's correct, but we
I'm
can certainly.
confused. though.
Yes.
Just in the interest of good governance here, I'm outside my county attorney role, and if somebody wants to fire me, then have at it.
Well, sir, if you're not, right now you are only to
Mr.
speak
McNamara
as
is
an
here.
attorney.
So why
You are
doesn't
here to
somebody
speak
answer
as
the
attorney.
question? Because I want to know if what is being proposed in the purchase agreement is true or not. And I'm hearing conflict, or the realignment of the ditch is approved or not. Somebody knows, I just want to know the answer to it.
And Bill wouldn't say the wrong thing.
Well,
I don't know, you would say the wrong thing, so maybe you misunderstood it. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. Jess, were you there at all? No? Okay.
Knew they would suck me in here.
No. Okay, now who are you? I'm just kidding.
John McNamara, the county surveyor. I don't recall what the minutes said, but as soon as I go back up to the office, I will grab them and read them and give them to you.
Thank you.
So I cannot say who's correct right here, and I'm not going to make it up.
And that's, thank you, honorable surveyor.
Thank you.
But I do feel comfortable fully recalling what the minutes of the meeting state. And also, this whole project, I've not been a fan of. Yes, some of it was approved a year or two ago by some of it, but most of it by a vote of 2-1. So I certainly do not approve taking $1 million of taxpayers' money to buy land we do not need, to take it off the tax rolls, on the hope that one day something might happen. People have been waiting for that economic zone for 30 years to turn into a big economic development zone. And the taxpayers have too many more important needs for us to shuffle $1 million at. So those are my, for now, I guess, the last of my questions regarding this matter for you, Mr. Shalio.
Shoveling.
I'm sorry, what was your question over the comment?
Whether he was
shuffling money or shoveling.
Okay,
shoveling, yes.
Well, and that's been the issue that I've had with the area, is it's been over 30 years and nothing's been done in that area. That's why I'm trying to move forward so that we can move the economic development. Everything's been on the shelf and we're pulling it off so we can move forward with it. So I certainly would like to support this so that we can move forward with it and get economic growth in this area and improve things. So I certainly, is there a motion to approve this?
I'd like to hear from the comment. We never asked the public if they would like to comment on the topic.
Can we do that now?
Certainly can.
Any comment, public comments? So you knew there was somebody here to talk.
I see them.
Well, I thought that they were going to talk about leaf
Is
pickup.
this microphone turned on?
Yes,
I
sir.
think it is, sir.
It's turned on?
Yeah, you have to state your name and address for the record.
Yes,
Okay,
state your name.
well,
And you have 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, 3 minutes. Got to state your name and address for the record.
on the business transaction
Sir?
here,
You got to state your name and address for the record.
Ken Sebasti,
Oh, really?
Senior. I represent the K&K Farms. 5,000 acres we farm. So, on the steel plant, I was on negotiations to get the steel plant here through Coldwell Bankers. Well, because I was successful of getting the steel plant here, they awarded me the lime that is used there to put on my farm. So, we've had a good business relationship with no problem whatsoever. But I wanted you to know that we have a lifetime agreement on taking care of the land that actually was going to weeds before we came there. And there was a fire out there caused by the railroad, went through that property, and the steel plant didn't want to see that to go on like that. So they leased my son and I the property, lifetime lease. And maybe you shouldn't agree to allowing this project to move forward until you research thoroughly what is happening here. So this property is well taken care of. That was our agreement, and we live up to our agreement. And that's why we have we're farming 5,000 acres, because we try to do everything right no matter what it is.
Thank you. Sir,
Thank
may I
you.
ask a couple questions of you? May I ask a couple questions of you? Mr. Sebastian, may I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, you and your wife came to a previous commissioner meeting, and you wanted to talk about some of this development, but because you couldn't hear, you couldn't follow what was going on. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And it's obviously that you have trouble hearing now, I think. You mentioned the steel plant's lifetime gratitude to you of letting you have lime for your lifetime. And are you stating that you also have a lifetime lease on this land that the county's thinking of buying? Is that what you believe?
Well, it's hard for me to understand. Like you said, I'm hard hearing. And the reason why I'm hard hearing, I'm only 5 years away from being 90. So there is problems.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
This is Thomas L. Smeisel, Senior, 51042 Prairie View Way, and I have to agree with Commissioner Thomas. I am not a fan of my taxpayer dollars going to developers to think about maybe having some business there someday. I'm not in favor of the county or city being in the real estate business per se. If it's going to be a good project there, I would think the developer would be able to go and negotiate a deal with whoever owns the property personally themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
For
Mr.
your
Smeislo, once again, congratulations on your wedding anniversary.
Thank
It was featured in today's Tribune. And also, I would comment, just for the strictest of understanding, this area, the redevelopment, has taken out bonds, borrowing money and paying interest, and now using that borrowed money to potentially buy this land. So when you say your tax money, it's technically tax money that's being sequestered in this economic zone.
I realize that.
But when that money's being spent there, it's not helping subsidize the rest of county government.
I know all about
So
it.
therefore, your ability and all taxpayers' ability to feel safe and comfortable is now diminished, because $1 million that should be helping everybody is now pulled off the table and helping someone else. So technically, they're not subsidizing the general fund and general expenditures. Technically, they are using their own TIF money.
Yes.
Make sure
Thank you.
clarification. Mr. Shalio, sorry to bother you, but you looked like you was on your phone a lot there. Did you look up the minutes of the meeting on your phone?
I actually wasn't on my phone. My phone is here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was stretching because I was just so lost in the moment. There had been, and I believe Mr. Garrett is here, could address the issue of farmers' rights on that property. There have been a series of farming contracts on that piece of property. There is not currently a contract in place.
There has been 4 written leases with Mr. Sebaski that the steel mill has provided. The most recent lease expired in May of this year, and the steel mill is not aware of a 5th lease that would extend it to next year at this time.
Mr. Garrett, thank you for that information. Is there any protection for Mr. Sebastian and his family for the hundreds of thousands of dollars of crops they have planted there?
Protection in what?
For the value of all the farm work and improvements they've made to that land. They have crops there that I would presume they would want to harvest and sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Are there any provisions or are there any rules in this purchase agreement that's going to be proposed that protects the current leaser of that land and any value of any crops that they currently have on there, or rights to those crops in the future?
As the county is not currently the owner or possessor of the land, the county has not made contact with the Sebastis or the Sebastis farming entities to negotiate what future land ownership rights might be available to the Sebastis on that property. This would be a great opportunity to have this conversation outside the forum of a public meeting. However, you've chosen to do that here, so we can continue and we can negotiate this matter in front of the people, if you'd like.
Oh, Mr. Shalio, thank you.
Mr. Thomas.
Actually, you brought this matter to this public counter.
I did.
In fact, it was not even legally advertised for 48 business hours,
I believe
as by state law.
I believe that it was.
No, it was not, sir.
It was placed on the agenda Friday, which would then give it 48
Monday
hours.
was a holiday, sir. The original agenda, as posted and advertised, did not include any of these topics. Spending over $1 million.
Well, if you would like to have me acquiesce and bring this to your next meeting, whether it's, I would love to be allowed to be on your Tuesday claims meeting, if allowed to. I would love to present.
Everybody's always welcome to be on a meeting if it's properly, by me at least, if they're properly and legally advertising properly. But I want to go back to Mr. Garrett. Same question.
Oh, let's just table
No,
it.
I want to still have an
No,
answer from Mr. Garrett. The question I just asked, are there any, in this purchase agreement, are there any rights to protect the current farmer who's been leasing the land and the hundreds of thousands of dollars they've got invested in that land, whether it's the crop that's going to grow and be harvested, the rights to put their trucks on that land and harvest said crops, or any irrigation equipment or establishment thereof? You mentioned that there was 4 leases, the last one expiring May of 2018. I would think that would mean that the farmer would have no rights, unless it's spelled out in this contract.
The purchase agreement is between the Still Mill and the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Commission.
Yes, and in that agreement, which I'm going to guess you know about because you were called as the expert on it, is there any provisions for the current leasee and any rights the current leasee may or may not have?
The purchase agreement makes no provisions for any third parties.
So we have to do that after we approve it, then we move forward.
Well, I
You
don't
can't-
know.
Well, that's something we can move forward
I
with.
think that a purchase agreement would include such important data.
No, a purchase agreement does not when you're dealing with someone differently, a bigger business. Obviously you don't understand that.
Well, I
because you're not a
think
business
you may
owner.
not understand that
No,
now.
I understand it. I'm a business owner.
That's good for you.
May I comment just on
Go ahead.
the publication? So I think Marie, consistent with past practice, provided notice that a meeting was going to have today. Every meeting is provided annually at the start of the year. There's going to be a meeting today. Agendas are circulated. Now, a governmental entity doesn't necessarily even need to use an agenda, and agendas can be changed or modified. And see Mr. Agostino nodding his head up and down at any time, even prior to the meeting or during it. So the meeting was properly noticed and advertised. I wanted to clarify that. But
The
you-
meeting
Well,
was
let's move on.
advertised.
Let's,
But this agenda item was added not within the 48 hours as required by state law.
Mr. Agostino is also shaking his head no on that, like I would say. But no, that's not the status of the law. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood we're operating legally under a meeting here.
Yeah, so the meeting was noticed properly, and the purpose of that is so that items that come up on the agenda are voted on publicly.
Thank you, Counselor. Now, items that were not legally on the agenda and not advertised, would they be discussed and voted on?
What's required is the notice of the meeting. The agenda can be modified even at the beginning of the meeting to add
we can add
items.
2 things, we can just,
The
so
important
yes.
thing is the action be taken. Now, there are specific items that require advance notice. This would not be one of them.
You
Those
think
are
this-
spelled out in the open door.
Don't you think the spending of nearly $1 million on such a controversial issue would require a 48-hour legal advertisement?
As a matter of law, not necessarily. As a matter of policy or how you want to vote things in a political sense, that's your prerogative as a board as a whole.
Thank you. Well, in a fair, open, and transparent government, not scared to hear what the citizens have to say, I think things of this magnitude should be advertised 48 hours in advance.
Shall we table this?
your guys' call, but it doesn't sound like you're going to have support to move the purchase agreement forward. And I think Mr. Thomas suggested tabling it and bringing it back.
That's what I heard. So you want to move to table it? No motion to table it?
No
Okay.
action is taken on this agenda.
No
item.
action? So we'll see how efficient we are here? Okay. All right. So we'll also have to pass D, the purchase agreement, because we didn't pass the resolution. So let's move on to the assessor. Request approval for 2 leased vehicles. Is anybody here to make any comments about that? Okay. County Assessor's Office is requesting 2 leased automobiles for use throughout the county. It's a Ford Escape 2018 and a 2018 Buick Encore. Any motions to approve this?
I make a motion to approve the request of the Honorable St. Charles County Assessor Rosemary Mandrici to purchase the 2 2018 Ford Escapes.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nay. All right, the ayes have it. We'll move on. Public Safety Communications Consortium requests approval for Motorola Solutions Service Agreement. Any comments from Ray Schultz?
Hello again.
Hi.
So I provided a brief explanation last week at your request via email, so if you have any others. So basically, this was approved in 2015 as part of the radio contract by the Board of Commissioners. When we accepted the radio's completion, the project completion, it kicked in a service agreement for maintenance. Because of the different changes that have happened, we thought it was a good idea to bring this back to you all for approval.
All right, any comments or questions?
Thank you. I think Commissioner Fleming asked the best question of you, and you responded via email, as you just stated. And I congratulate you on appreciating the wisdom of Brent Kroymans in negotiating a better contract.
Yes.
And I also would note you're quoting Leviticus 26:329, that leadership, like life, is the sum total of the decisions we've made.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Second. Oh, I make a motion to approve
Motion
the
approved.
request.
I'll second
the-
that.
the
All right.
Raymond Schultz, Executive Director, request regarding the appraising of Brent Clements and the purchase of this agreement.
All right, and I second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
All right, past that. We're moving on. All righty, Public Works. There's a consent agenda. Consent agenda will be the Hospice Foundation and Bike Michiana Coalition Annual Bike Michiana for Hospice. Nothing else? Any motion to approve that?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as outlined.
All right, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay. Moving on to B, Public Works B, request approval of memorandum of understanding for the railroad overpass over the Canadian National Railroad tracks improvement on Douglas Road.
Good morning, Jessica Clark, County Engineer, offices here in the County City Building, room 732. Before you is the memorandum of understanding for a potential future project on Douglas Road to build a grade separation over Canadian National. We are partnering with City of Mishawaka on this project as far as submitting a local tracks application to receive grant funding. The project itself is between 26 to 29 million. With that grant, our local commitment would be between 4 and 4.5 with the provisions of this MOU. So we request your approval to endorse the MOU. Mayor Wood has signed it.
Any comments?
I thank the engineer and her staff, Madam Engineer and her staff, for keeping abreast of all these government opportunities to maximize our taxpayers' dollars for projects that actually serve everybody. And I thank the City of Mishawaka for the local agreement and cooperation to help come up with the percentage of the match to get the federal dollars. We've done this with Elkhart County, we've done this with South Bend, we've done it with the City of Mishawaka, and here we are doing it with the City of Mishawaka once again.
I think this is a great idea, and I'm glad we're moving forward, working with Mishawaka to move forward with this. So, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the request of the Madam Engineer outlined.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nays? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, there's no old business, even though I'm older, no business. All right, and any public comments? Okay, public comments, you have a 3-minute limit.
Thomas L. Smeisel, Senior, 51042 Prairie View Way, South Bend, Indiana. I'm here with some German Township residents here today. I used to be the president of the German Township Homeowners Association, and we have a situation was created in the county by the city of South Bend in regard to development in the Portage Prairie project, which is causing great concern, which we tried to warn. I'm kind of disappointed my commissioners here. I'm glad that the county engineer is here today, but I'm kind of disappointed my county commissioner isn't here today to hear this. But in regard to the traffic, the noise, and the safety issues we have out on Adams Road, Portage Highway, Orange Road, and Mayflower Road, this is getting to be a disaster out there. We just had an issue with my neighbor's traffic sign being knocked down about 25 feet away from his daughter's bedroom window for somebody speeding in the wrong direction on the wrong side of the road and losing control and just missing a telephone pole by about a foot. I've got pictures of that to prove that situation there. I've got a couple other people that live on Adams Road that had both of their children's vehicles hit coming out of one of the businesses there that didn't stop for a stop sign on Adams Road by the new warehouses there on Adams Road. This is just a horrible situation. I mean, our traffic has increased, and I would just like to ask if there's something that could be done. I don't know exactly what at this time, but something needs to be done before somebody gets killed out there. We have got traffic that is flying up and down the road, drag racing, racing. We've got crotch rocket motorcycles going on one wheel up and down the road. I've got a statement here from one more neighbor I'd like to give, but maybe if I could get a few more seconds of your time. I'd like to relay this to my specific concerns. The commissioners, here are my issues. Speeding down Adams towards Portage intersection west to east, Jackrabbit starts. Speeding from Adams away from Portage intersection to west, Jackrabbit starts in the Portage Adams intersection all directions, counted by loud, broken, non-existent mufflers. The above three issues seem to emanate from all manners of vehicles, muscle cars, pickup trucks, motorcycles, etc. This is from Tim Wilson on Portage and Adams Road. Aside from obvious dangers associated with excessive speeding, the noise outside is sometimes so loud that I have to stop my conversations for a few seconds until the speeding motorists are passed. It's definitely worse around commuting times, drivers rushing to get to work or get home, but also randomly throughout the weekends, especially nicer weather. I would encourage and welcome increased police presence along Adams and Portage roads. I believe the increased presence of traffic patrols would go a long way towards calming down vehicular behavior. Let's not wait until someone gets killed. Tim Wilson, corner of 51029 Portage Road. He asked me to relay this message. The meeting is during the day. And if there's something the county engineer could do to look at this situation, it'd be highly appreciated. And I just wanted to bring, and there's other neighbors that have the same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Smyslow, during question and answer, we don't necessarily have to answer, but I will throw out just a few comments. I gladly will sometimes mention the poor attendance of some of my fellow commissioners, but I think today, Commissioner Castelny, although I don't know his exact issue, I understand it's of a sympathetic nature. Okay. That if we knew about it, we would excuse him today.
That's unfortunate.
I'm not going to count for his other poor attendance record. And I've been on this board over 10 years, the longest serving commissioner. I've never missed a meeting, and I've never missed a vote. But today, I believe he has sympathetic reasons to not be here. On the issue of all the crazy annexation that happened in German Township years ago by previous South Bend boards. It was very unfair to you, the residents of German Township, that you're getting annexed by a South Bend City board that you have no vote or control over. And they really didn't listen to you citizens at all.
That's right.
And it's a shameful thing they didn't. The current city council board, it seems to be very responsive. Protecting the rights and seeing the lunacy of trying to realign the South Shore through Ardmore. So, but in the meantime, we've inherited this somewhat of a mess where what's city, what's county, what's city, what's county, and our engineering department works diligently to try to address these problems and work united with, just as we mentioned earlier, a little agreement with Mishawaka, trying to work with South Bend. We'll try to get this area more on the radar as best as able, and we do have winter coming, and rivers start with a drop. So thank you for sharing these concerns with us, and I'm sure we'll ask the Public Works to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Hello.
Yeah. My name's Mike Kiros, 51024 Prairie View Way. Mr. Smyslow's neighbor. I'm the resident with my daughter's bedroom 25 feet away from where this vehicle possibly almost hit the telephone pole. I've lived there for about a year. We built a home there. I've lived in German Township for about 12 years. What I've seen, like, I will second what he says. As you guys say second and third and this and that, I'm going to second what Mr. Smyslow says, and I'm going to probably third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, and 100th what probably the rest of the neighbors say down Adams Road. It's dangerous out there. The speed limit is 40 miles an hour. These people are doing 60 plus 70 by the time they reach our house, which is only probably 200 feet from the corner of Adams and Portage. I've personally seen multiple times motorcycles riding wheelies. I've seen cars drag racing. I've seen commercial vehicles, which there are clearly no signs for trucks out there, from the industrial park down there. I'm not going to name names, but it's a pop delivery service and it's a mail delivery service out there. Those guys are doing 60, 70 miles an hour to try to speed back to the factory or their warehouse at the end of the business day. I'm pretty sure they're not stopping to deliver any packages out there, so my concern is, what are they driving down a road for? A few years ago, it was repaved. We have a mile-long drag strip there with no stop signs, nothing. And these people are driving crazy at all times. From 5:30 in the morning, I sleep next to that, and I hear loud cars waking us up in the morning. Even on the weekends, we get the business traffic, we get the commuters, but then we also get weekend warriors is what I call it. Guys out there in their sports cars, guys on their motorcycles, driving up and down fast, really fast. It's getting a little crazy out there, and like I said, it hit me this weekend. We went out of town overnight. We came back, and I found the road sign down, and I talked with Tom about it, and that's ultimately why we're here. My neighbor butts up against Tim Wilson's yard, like Mr. Smyslow was saying, and it is getting very, very loud out there with the construction traffic and the residents. The biggest concern is a safety issue. Somebody is going to eventually get hurt and or killed out there when you have motorcycles riding wheelies and people exceeding the speed limit by 1.5 to 2 times. The speed limit's, again, 40 miles an hour, and these cars are doing not even a quarter mile in their acceleration west towards the industrial parks or their homes. They're doing 60 miles an hour at least by the time they hit our subdivision there. So if there's anything that can be done, that's what I'd ask. I would request that maybe we could get a few stop signs out there. That's not going to cost millions of dollars like whatever other budget issues have been talked about here. There is an intersection out there at the corner of Mayflower and Adams that could easily have a 4-way stop put. I'm sure there's been accidents there before. There probably will be more, but there's a mile gap in between Portage and Mayflower there that somehow, some way, traffic needs to be slowed down, even maybe possibly speed bumps, if that's what it comes to, because people are out of control out there, and eventually it's going to cost someone.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Yarrow.
Any other public comments?
Go ahead, sir.
K&K Farms, Ken Sebasti. I want to relate to what the previous person had to say about the traffic problem. And we've got the traffic problem because the toll road has increased the price of use a toll road, so they get off on a 31 bypass and come to 2 and 20. Well, we live on 20. We see how bad the traffic is, and we need a light at Larison because of all the semis coming in and out of there, including our own. We'll have, this fall, we'll have in the neighborhood of 200 semis, our own farm operation. Then you take all the rest of them too, you can imagine how bad it is to get across there. It really is a serious situation. Now that's a state-controlled traffic, but maybe the county officials can relate to what's happening out there with that toll road traffic added to the present traffic. So I want to also say that on my property out there at Nukalau, there's been some movement going on about taking our farm away from us for future industry. And I'll tell you right now that that farm is not for sale and will not be used by any county officials. So when I say our farm's not for sale, it's a family farm. And it's not only for myself, it's for our children, for our grandchildren. And if that happens, that they come out there with the idea that they're going to tear our farm up, I'm saying it's not going to happen, even though if we have to go to court, we'll go to court.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. And Mr. Sebastian, when people say that your land isn't developed, does that hurt you? Because you've spent 80-plus years as an American veteran developing that land into your family farm. When they tell you it's not developed, how does that make you feel?
Well, naturally, I've been there my whole life in that area, and I farmed my whole life, and I know how to be successful in running an operation, and that's why our farm operation has grown to 50 farms, or 52, I'm not sure about that. And so we're not small potatoes. Maybe as a farmer we don't get the respect that we need, but that's not too much to be asking for either.
And isn't it true that your land has abnormally high yields because it's such good farm soil, and that in fact you grow a lot of seed corn, which is what all the other farmers on the planet are dependent upon?
Yeah.
Because your soil is so good?
Yeah, we got seed corn on our farm, and regular corn and soybeans that makes up our operation.
Thank you. And I've often mentioned the problems and need for a light at Larison and 2. There's been serious accidents and several deaths that the state needs to wake up and put a stoplight there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And then in the room, we have the honorably elected Dolores Schasker from German Township Advisory Board, I see. Schasker, pardon me, Dolores. How nice to see an honorably elected official visiting us.
My name is Dolores Schasker, and I live at 23381 Adams Road, which is 3 houses away from the corner of Mayflower. And our road has just gotten out of hand, and so many people from the new factories run our road like it's a racetrack. And we have a young man that comes down about 8:30 every night on doing a wheelie down Adams Road, and he starts at the bypass and he goes all the way to Portage, which is about 1.5 miles. And should he come down that hill before Mayflower, and a car goes through there, he's gonna cut the car in half and possibly kill a mother and a couple children or that. There's just been an accident at Mayflower and Adams. I'm not sure who was at fault. We keep our nose out of that. And then there's been a lot of wrecks at the new factory. They come out of that parking lot. They don't stop for anybody on Adams Road. Down the road, Joe Augustino's daughter, who's just gotten her driver's license, somebody came out of that factory, didn't even stop. They ran right into her. And I think that's horrible for a teenager to start out her driving life to have somebody from a factory that doesn't have any respect for our road. And I'd like to see more police presence. We do have a Mishawaka policeman that lives on our road, but I don't know if he has any jurisdiction or that. And thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other comments?
I will remind everybody that we have another executive meeting to return to, so we will not be available for much discussion after this meeting, apologizing in advance.
Motion to recess?
Motion to recess?
Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to recess. Thank you.
Thank you for bearing with me during the meeting.